When you take the X-Men, Indiana Jones, and Jurassic Park and you mix them together, you get Rogue the Savage Land, and it's just as crazy as it sounds. My name's Brexton, and today we're taking a deep dive into the one-off 5-issue miniseries Rogue the Savage Land, written by Tim Seeley with art by Zulema Lavina. This story is part of Marvel's one-off series, which take place at different points throughout Marvel history, but not in the present-day continuity. The story itself takes place between Uncanny X-Men issues 174 and 175, which were written by Chris Claremont with art by Jim Lee. In the original story, Rogue was fighting alongside the X-Men against Nimrod. She sacrifices herself, being sent through the Siege Perilous, a gateway to the multiverse. We believe that she's dead afterwards, but a few issues later we see that she wakes up powerless and now split from Carol Danvers, aka Captain Marvel, whose powers she had previously absorbed. Now Carol, obviously mad that Rogue had essentially absorbed her powers, begins to chase Rogue. Along the way, Rogue runs into Gateway and decides to use his powers to escape, but something goes wrong and she falls into the Savage Land, where she runs into Magneto and finds herself in the middle of a civil war. Before we get into the 2025 series itself, it's worth mentioning that when this series was announced in 2024, it was met with some controversy online, with some fans taking up issue with the original run of Rogue in the Savage Land. This controversy can be boiled down to two main issues, the first being the suggestive outfit and depiction of Rogue, and the second being the dreaded Rogue Magneto love story, which was introduced in that original run in the Savage Land and was reintroduced in the X-Men 97 animated series. Before the time of publishing, writer Tim Seeley did respond to fans with these issues and reassured them that these would likely not come up in the story itself, but now that this series has concluded and has been out for several months, how does it add up? From a story perspective, this new series hits many of the same beats from the original run, but expands upon areas that were skipped over or happened off-panel. A powerless Rogue finds herself in the Savage Land, fights zombie Carol Danvers, and is eventually saved by Magneto. The two run into Ka-Zar and form an odd alliance when they discover that the evil sorceress Zaladane is planning to plunge the Savage Land into a second ice age. They fight many dinosaurs along the way and eventually save the Savage Land. Now, with any one of these one-off series, it's worth asking, was this necessary? Did the original run leave enough unanswered questions and unexpanded upon details that warrant us revisiting that time in history with a new series? And I'm going to say absolutely yes. This original run was sadly interrupted by a larger event, something that we see happening more and more in modern comics. The original run introduced us to Rogue being in the Savage Land, and then we get plunged into Extinction Agenda. When Rogue originally gets to the Savage Land, we see her being saved by Magneto, hit Extinction Agenda, and then next thing we know, when we see Rogue again, she's in the middle of a civil war. There's clearly a lot that happens off panel, so revisiting this story was definitely interesting and gave the writers plenty to expand upon. As for my thoughts, I think the first issue starts off really strong, and I actually really enjoyed it. It often dissects Rogue's character, and I especially love the part where she reflects on how important the X-Men are to her. Unfortunately, each issue afterwards slowly drops in quality to the point where when we get to issue 5, the last issue, I was just excited to be done. I don't think that Magneto is written particularly well, and I think that some of the dialogue feels very odd and blocky at times. That being said, there are some really funny comedic bits that actually made me laugh. I didn't have Rogue hitting on Ka-Zar on my 2025 bingo card, but here we are. And speaking of Ka-Zar, I was shocked to come out of this series actually really liking the character. The series does a lot to humanize him rather than just make him Marvel Tarzan. As for the art, and I guess this is as good a time as any to get into that first controversy, I actually really liked the art. It felt like a reminiscent tribute to the original 1990s style art where the characters were jacked with muscle on muscle and every color was vibrant and bright. That being said, if you are one of the people who did have an issue with the original run and its depiction and suggestive depiction of Rogue and some of the other characters, this is very much that same thing, if anything, attribute to it. I mean, you can look right here and just see. That being said, I personally don't have that much of an issue with it because the men and the women are equally drawn very suggestively, and it gives much more of a Rocky Horror Picture vibe rather than a misogynistic tone. If Rogue were the only one in tattered clothes, it would be an issue, but when Rogue is standing next to Ka-Zar, who is literally in a loincloth, it doesn't feel quite as weird. As for the biggest controversy, the dreaded Rogue and Magneto relationship. When this series originally was announced, the writer did reassure fans that that would not play a big part into the series and that he himself personally didn't like that when it came out in its original run, which personally was a green flag for me because I was kind of dreading that aspect of the story as well. I'm a big Rogue fan myself, so when I saw that she was going to be leading her own series, I was going to pick it up. That being said, I had some issues because number one, I am a Rogue Gambit endgame kind of guy, and number two, and this is what most fans have issue with, is the age gap. Now, how old these characters are is hard to pinpoint exactly, with different comics, fluctuating timelines, and de-aging and aging. Some fans may see Rogue in her 20s. I personally see Rogue in her 30s, with Magneto being someone who, due to various aging and de-aging, least we forget about baby Magneto, is someone who's physically in his 60s at least and mentally in his 120s. And he's not even in the same way that Wolverine is like 200 and something, but can only remember things past 1980 because he was experimented on and brainwiped from Weapon X. Magneto remembers everything. His time in the Holocaust as a child is very formative on who he is now. So this is a man who is matured to 120 years and a woman who is in her 30s. And while they're two consenting adults, there is something that feels really weird about an age gap that's at best 30 years and at worst about 90 years apart. So when I originally read this series back when it came out in the spring, I don't remember the relationship really playing that big of a role in the story, but upon rereading it for this video, it is very much there, and while it's not a huge part of the story, it is present throughout the run. Overall, while it does not avoid all of the pitfalls of the original run, 2025's Rogue the Savage Land is a fitting tribute to the original era and does successfully expand upon the parts that we didn't see that were off panel. Sadly, though, it does have some shortcomings in its storytelling abilities. It does have some very comedic and funny moments and some beautiful artwork, but the story is not there all the time. I'm giving Rogue the Savage Land 2 out of 6 snicks. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, hit the like button if you liked this and want to see more, and have a great day.